Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you how you can reamp your DIs through your Neural DSP Quad Cortex. So what I mean by that is you maybe have a DI from an existing project that you've recorded previously, or you're working on someone else's project. You want to use some of the tones on your Quad Cortex. You don't want to have to replay those parts, and you just want to send the DIs back through and then reamp them in this case we're using Reaper, but this works in any DAW. The input and output settings may be a little bit different, but the premise is the same. We're going to be using the Quad Cortex as a USB audio interface. So that's really the most important thing that we do here, is the Quad Cortex must be your interface, but I'll show you how I do that in Reaper, and then you can just adjust accordingly in your particular editor. So before we insert any tracks or do any routing, I'm going to go to Options and then Preferences. Okay, so you can see that my device selected to be used in Reaper is the Neural DSP USB audio device, which is the ASIO driver for the Quad Cortex. And then my first input is input 1, and then last is USB output 8. And then similarly for the output range, it's the same. So this is really important. If you don't do that, then to my knowledge, I don't know if it works any other way. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Anyway, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to insert a new track. And this is actually going to be our DI here. You may already have an existing project with a DI in there, as said, but what we're going to do is I'm going to drag in a DI from Humanity's Last Breath, Nail the Mix. So you get raw DIs and whatnot in there, and it's perfect. It means I'm not going to subject you to listening to one of my poorly recorded DIs. So now that we've got that in there, we're going to add another new track. So this is our DI here, and I'll rename that to DI so we can separate that. And this is going to be called Reamped. So we've got two tracks. We've got our DI and we've got our Reamped. Reamped is what is going to be the actual Quad Cortex version. So we're going to send the DI through and then record it back into the editor, which is what you do. So now that we have this, one really important thing we need to do is we need to route this into the Quad Cortex itself. So in Reaper, you can actually do that down here on the little mixer. And there's a little route icon here where we control our sends and receives and whatnot. If you've done MIDI stuff or worked with other devices, you'd be well versed in this already. But just assuming that you don't know how to do it, and we'll go from there. So I clicked on that routing icon, and I've got this little routing panel now for our DI, track 1 DI. We're going to go to Audio Hardware Outputs. And what we're going to do is we're going to send it to USB 5 and 6. So you can see that's created a little thing here, and we don't have to touch anything on that. Just leave those default settings as they are. So that's going to USB 5 and 6. Now, on our reamped track, this is where we're going to record into. I'm going to arm it for recording, and I'm going to disable this annoying record monitoring, because by default, this has tripped me up before where it's been armed by default, and then I'm playing and I can hear the guitar doubling up. And embarrassingly, I've actually spent some time before thinking that my guitar track is like corrupted or something like that, and it's just I'm listening to the guitar and there's like a little bit of delay. So anyway, I'm going to go onto this little input thing here now. I'm going to input stereo, and what we're actually going to do here is we're going to choose 7 and 8 USB. So you'll recall on a DI track we did 5 and 6 USB, and on the reamp track we've done 7 and 8. It's really important because we're going to tell the Quad Cortex to use this DI here from 5 and 6 as the input, and then we're going to tell this track to use 7 and 8 as the output here. So it's really important, well, as the input, really. It says output, but it's an input in this case. Quad Cortex is just really configurable that way. So now I'm going to go over to Cortex Control, and I've got my plugin, my preset all ready to go here, and it's already been configured with the outputs and stuff. But this one here, obviously that's the input, and you'll notice here I've got stereo USB input 5 and 6, which coincides to 5 and 6 over here. Super important. That's telling the Quad Cortex preset that DI, when we hit record, is going to play through the Quad Cortex into 5 and 6, and that's our source. Then over here, this is our output, and we're telling it to take the sound that's coming in from 5 and 6, run it through our chain, and then put it into 7 and 8 over here. So we've gone stereo, USB output, 7 and 8. Now you can also do multiple outputs to do all kinds of stuff, or do, weird little signal routing things and whatnot. If you want to get technical, we're just going to keep it simple for this. But you can do a little bit more complicated signal and routing options if you want to. So now that we've got that, this preset is actually configured to work with this. Now you're not going to hear the audio on here, but you will see it recording in there. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to bump up the volume in here because my preset's a little bit quiet at the moment. So I just really want you to be able to see this. So we're going to start here. I'm going to disable the metronome and I'm going to hit record. So we should start to see our reamped version. There we go. That's playing the DI through the Quad Cortex, and then it's recording on our signal path here, and then back into Reaper. And that's it. It's really that simple. The Quad Cortex, has these beautiful routing and configuration options where you can do this stuff, and it's really simple. Now, naturally, if you have a project that maybe is a little bit bigger, let's see, I've got something in here. Trying to find a track of mine that's actually this one. So you're not going to hear this again, but I've got a track that is using a whole bunch of plugins basically on here. I've got like bass. You can see there's a few DIs. I've got some colored things in here, and these are basically just using plugins on this particular thing. So in this case, if you have a project that's similar, you may actually want to feed your Quad Cortex in and combine it with your Archetype plugins in here, which you can do. So you can see I've got Fort and Cali on this one, and this one, Fort and Cali as well. So yeah, you can actually do really cool options where if you have an existing project where maybe you're going from the plugins to the Quad Cortex, obviously because plugins aren't currently supported at the time of the recording of this video, you could combine the both so you get the best of both worlds of your Quad Cortex tones and your plugin tones all in the same project. So that's how you do it. Really simple, and I hope that helps you out.